because from like using base pedals.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I would always push down on my big toe too hard. I wouldn't bounce my foot properly. So I'd kind of like push down like this instead of like planting my whole foot down on the base pedals. And it just overstressed the tendon, turned into plantar fasciitis. And I was not very consistent on fixing it. And it was a struggle to get rid of this for like 3 months. I would work on it, it'd feel better. I would stop, go back into training. A week later, you'd come back. And I was just running through this cycle over and over and over again. And when I finally just stopped training, I gave myself 2 weeks and just focused on working on it every day, it started to turn around. And then I just kept it going. I eventually healed it. But it was annoying, man. It is an annoying ass injury. And this really highlights how dependent you are on your feet. A lot of people think, oh, it's foot strength. Like that doesn't really do shit. Like we need to squat. We need to get the hips stronger. You think that until you injure your foot.
Yeah.
Like you can injure your hip muscles, right? Or your hamstrings, and you can kind of find a way to work around it. When you injure your foot, everything really shuts down.
Yeah.
The way you walk is compromised. The way you train, you can't. Like think about it. Like Jay, you ever stubbed your toe?
Yeah, it's excruciating.
It's excruciating. Like, have you ever tried walking after you stub your toe? Like, you can't
Yeah.
walk. It
Yeah.
shuts your whole body down.
Yeah, there was one time we were doing it was kind of like the Murph test at the gym, but it was a little different. But like a high volume, hour long test with a bunch of pull ups, and there was some front squats. This was years ago, and I remember I dropped the weight on my toe. We'd been training for this. It was like a 3 month build up, and today was the day. And as I was getting the weights for my barbell, I dropped the weight on my big toe. And this was like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I still have my toenail still messed up, but I made it. I finished the hour, but yeah, my toe went numb about 10 minutes in, and it was rough.
Did you lose your toenail?
Not fully, but I mean, like it's my toenail's still half like yellow and chunky, and this was years ago at this point.
Oh no. Yeah, man, that's a bad one. And you know that brings up another point, and this is part of the reason why I feel like barefoot training is not really catching on, especially in these gold standard professional and university like strength and conditioning programs, that they're not doing this barefoot training because it's deemed unsafe. Like accidents, you can drop a weight plate on your toe and shit like that. Which if you have super cats, you don't have to worry about that because you literally just put the weight on the back of the super cat. There's no real risk. But because you're using like squat racks and dumbbells and deadlift techniques and trap bar techniques, the chances of you dropping something on your foot are heavily increased. So just another reason why barbells are ruining sports performance.
Let me ask you this about the plantar fasciitis. Since I struggled with this for a while too, I ran a 50K without much training, and about halfway into the training, my plantar fascia just became a nightmare. And so to get to what you're talking about, the dorsiflexion, like I experienced that when I would wake up, it was like my feet were just on fire, like for nothing. Like it just the first 3 steps of the day were the most excruciating steps. Eventually I found out like if I really pull into dorsiflexion, like that kind of opened up enough space that I could take those first few steps of the day less painful. And then I started training my dorsiflexion muscles, like the anterior tibialis and stuff like that. Is that it seemed like it helped, but I'm not really sure. But would you suggest stuff like that, like strengthening those dorsiflexion muscles to combat the tightness that kind of comes from that plantar flexion?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Anything to promote dorsiflexion is going to help. And the tibialis muscles, anterior tib and posterior tib, those are what really like pull the foot up. So strengthening those will improve biomechanics because there could have been something deficient in maybe your dorsiflexion. So perhaps you were striking too much on the heel, or maybe too uneven on the foot. And when you train those tibialis muscles, you promote better dorsiflexion, and that could help with the way your foot hits the ground.
Yeah, it felt like it helped, but it's so annoying when it happens. It feels like nothing helps to an extent as well.
Yeah, it sucks. It's probably the most annoying injury. That and
Ribs.
uh, Wrist can suck.
Or I was saying
My
ribs.
impression is wrist can suck, but I think scapula issues, especially dominant side scapula issues, shoulder drop, where you see some guys like this, it's real common in like baseball pitchers and stuff,
Yeah.
the shoulder blades sliding off, or fighters, and this whole area feels agitated and annoying and it goes down your back. That's a real common one I see with a lot of throwers and fighters.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some BJ Penn stuff. See if I can find the one with Sean Shirk. Oh shit. Here we go.
All right. Yeah, so here's a good example where BJ Penn fought Sean Shirk, and Sean Shirk's a freaking monster. Like people don't remember this guy. He was like one of the first like elite athletes to get into MMA. And but if you look, BJ Penn is not in like super great shape in this fight. He's in okay shape. But he's never like really big into like heavy cardiovascular training. Like BJ had he's what we call talented. His nervous system, his neuromuscular efficiency was naturally really high. And so guys who have really high neuromuscular efficiency, sports comes easy for them. They learn things faster than everyone else. They acquire skills extremely quick. Their speed, their relaxation, their timing, their coordination, they're just really up there with soft qualities, with very minimal training. And a lot of people really have kind of trouble like grasping why some people are better. And a lot of it is they're just born different. Some people are born stronger, some people are born weaker. Like we see guys like this all the time. If you play any organized sports, there's always this one guy that tries to show up for the football team or for the baseball team that is he's just not a great athlete. Doesn't have great feet, maybe not great genetic structure. They require a lot more artificial stimulation to try to get their bodies at a level to perform to meet the standards of the rest of the team,
Yeah.
right? Or they get cut, and it's artificial selection, and it's if it's there instead and this has been going on since the Stone Age. Instead of getting cut from a baseball team, they would have got picked off by a predator. It just happens, So, but right now, human beings, we're the only species that can artificially produce our stimulation instead of the environment doing it for us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what training is. And some guys, they don't need to train as much to be as good. They just come out of the box better, and it just is what it is. And BJ's one of those guys. He just came out of the box better, and you can see. BJ, he's naturally really relaxed. He's got a lot of foot speed. He's got great coordination. He's got great timing and balance. And BJ is known for this legendary run to get his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Have you heard of this before?
No.
So the myth is that BJ got his black belt in just 3 years of Jiu-Jitsu, from start to finish.
And this is the legit like. Jiu-Jitsu guys respect his black belt after 3 years.
Yeah. Beating black belts after 3 years. And he ran the jiu-jitsu scene in California and Hawaii, like during like the early 2000s before he was an MMA fighter. Like they call him the Prodigy. Like he has the nickname the Prodigy for a reason, because everyone thought like, dude, this is the Hawaiian Jesus of MMA. He's gonna be world champion one day. Now, granted, his obsession with learning was really high. He said he was obsessed with jiu-jitsu. That's all he wanted to do, learn jiu-jitsu every day, twice a day. He just wouldn't stop. So there is the compound effect. Like if you put in more work than the other guy, you're going to get to that result a lot faster. But there's also the attrition rate. A lot of guys, maybe if they're weaker, they're more out of shape, they're not as neuromuscularly dominant, they're going to acquire things that might slow their journey down. Injuries, fatigue, burnout. But if you have a really advanced nervous system, where usually what takes like maybe your average jiu-jitsu athlete, maybe 1,000 reps to master a new armbar series. If you have a really advanced nervous system, if you're quote unquote really talented, that time can be cut in half. You can learn it in maybe like a couple hundred reps, and you just got it. You see these guys all the time. Like you see them in jiu-jitsu gyms or in kickboxing gyms, or just in like, or Jake, just in like on like in baseball. You played a lot of baseball in high school, correct?
Yeah, that's my sport.
Yeah, weren't these guys that you grew up with, and they were just always better. They were just
Yeah.
always better than everyone.
Yep. Yep. I think there's the whole like Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours to become a master or something. I think about that, but you got to keep in mind like some people are just like they're able to transfer their skills from other domains so fast that they're gonna come into a new like BJ Penn when he started his jiu-jitsu journey, he probably already had like thousands of relevant hours of whatever he was into, you know, what other martial arts, but also probably sports growing up, like thousands of hours of building body awareness and chasing curiosities on how his body works, how it moves, how to manipulate other people's bodies. So people like that. There's this. I know I brought him up in another conversation. Josh Waitskin. He's a learning specialist, but he has this concept of low rep learning, and he trained jiu-jitsu with Marcelo Garcia. He said Marcelo is the lowest rep learner he ever trained with, where 1 or 2 reps and his body would know that drill forever. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
I always thought that was really cool. Like these guys, it's like in class when you're studying in school. There's always the some of the kids are gonna study their ass off just for an A-, and then other people are gonna show up 2 minutes late. They didn't even remember that there was a test to study for that day, and they get 100% plus the 2 extra credit points. You know, it's just not fair. But it is kind of fair because those people have probably also spent hours studying similar stuff where they've got the neural network in their brain that they can apply to that subject. So
well, yeah. Well, let me break that idea down
yeah,
because that's a really good way to create a good context to this. Where the 10,000 hour rule, I don't think is entirely accurate. I think that's more accurate for say like a cognitive skill, but when it comes to a kinesthetic skill, there's time and time again, there's a lot of people that just break that 10,000 hour to mastery. They just shatter it to pieces, like, and they get that mastery done in half the time.
yeah, I would argue that it's not half the time. It's just they're transferring hours that they've already trained similar things. Like for me, like once I started Muay Thai, like I'd already invested so many hours in like rotating for baseball that I had at least some of those 10,000 hours already